Most people grow up believing that strength is loud. If someone raises their voice, interrupts, or dominates a room, they're automatically labeled as confident. Calm behavior, on the other hand, often gets misread as passivity. It's a lazy shortcut the brain takes. When there's no emotional fireworks, people assume there's no power behind the silence. What's interesting is that this confusion usually says more about the observer than the calm person. Emotionally reactive people rely on visible signals to measure status. They expect tension, defensiveness, or urgency. When none of that shows up, it creates discomfort, and the brain rushes to explain that discomfort by labeling calmness as weakness. A simple real-life example proves this. Think of a meeting where one person stays composed while others argue. At first, they may be ignored, but as the chaos grows, eyes slowly drift back to the calm one. Something feels different, something feels grounded, and right there, subtle shift begins, one that most people don't consciously notice yet. That shift opens the door to a deeper question. If calmness isn't weakness, what is it actually signaling beneath the surface? Emotional control is one of those traits people feel before they understand. A calm person doesn't rush to defend, explain, or prove anything. And that absence of reaction quietly communicates, "I'm not threatened." In social dynamics, that message carries weight. It suggests inner stability, self-trust, and a kind of authority that doesn't need validation. There's a reason seasoned leaders, negotiators, and even judges tend to speak slowly and react less. They've learned that whoever controls their emotions controls the pace of the interaction. When someone remains composed under pressure, others instinctively adjust their behavior. Voices lower, words become more careful. Respect begins to form without being demanded. A practical way to see this is an everyday conflict. When someone tries to provoke a reaction and gets none, the power dynamic flips. The calm person isn't disengaged. They're choosing. That choice signals strength. Books like The 48 Laws of Power hint at this. But real mastery comes from practice pausing before responding, breathing before speaking, and letting silence do some of the work. And once emotional control starts reshaping interactions, it naturally raises a bigger question. What's actually happening inside the minds of those who suddenly show more respect? Respect rarely comes from words alone. It comes from presence. A calm person tends to occupy space differently, not physically, but psychologically. They're fully there. No frantic gestures, no rushed explanations. That steadiness makes the brain of the observer assign value. Humans are wired to associate control with competence. Psychologically speaking, predictability creates anxiety. Emotional volatility signals risk. Calmness does the opposite. It tells the nervous system, this person is safe, but not to be tested. That combination is powerful. It mirrors how people naturally respond to authority figures who don't need to assert themselves because their presence already sets the tone. A useful analogy is the deep ocean versus choppy water. The surface can be chaotic, loud, and dramatic, but depth is silent. Depth is stable. People may play in the waves, but they respect the ocean's depth. Developing presence works the same way. Simple habits like slowing speech, maintaining eye contact, and reducing unnecessary movement amplify this effect over time. Once presence is established, the next shift becomes almost invisible but crucial. How calm people enforce boundaries without ever escalating the situation. Calm people don't beg for respect, and they don't announce boundaries with emotional speeches. They enforce them quietly, through consistency. When a line is crossed, they don't explode. They respond once, clearly, and without apology. That alone surprises most people, because it breaks the expected emotional script. There's a subtle confidence in saying less. A calm, "that doesn't work for me," delivered without anger lands heavier than a long explanation filled with tension. It signals self-respect, and self-respect teaches others how to treat you. Over time, people learn that pushing further won't create drama, it will simply create distance. In real life, this might look like ending a conversation, leaving a room, or calmly repeating a boundary without changing tone. No lectures, no threats, Books like Essentialism emphasize this kind of disciplined simplicity. The power isn't in the words, it's in the emotional neutrality behind them. And once boundaries are enforced this way, something fascinating happens. People begin to hesitate before crossing them in the first place, sensing an authority they can't quite explain. Silent authority isn't built through intimidation. It's built through predictability. Calm people respond the same way whether they're praised, challenged, or ignored. That consistency creates a psychological anchor. Others quickly realize there's no emotional lever to pull, no button to press, no reaction to exploit. This is why calm individuals often become informal leaders without trying. People start watching them more closely, not because they're loud, but because their reactions are deliberate. In group settings, silence after a tense moment often carries more weight than any argument. It forces others to fill the space, and in doing so, they reveal more than they intended. A practical example shows up in negotiations. The person who speaks less, pauses longer, and stays composed often wins better terms. Silence becomes a signal of confidence, not uncertainty. Practicing this can be as simple as counting to 3 before responding, or allowing a pause to stretch just a bit longer than feels comfortable. And as this silent authority grows, it naturally leads to an even deeper advantage, one that flips the traditional idea of control on its head. Most people assume control comes from quick responses. In reality, it comes from restraint. Calm individuals understand that every reaction is a form of permission. When they react less, they stop feeding situations that don't deserve their energy. That choice quietly shifts leverage back into their hands. There's a psychological principle at play here. The person who needs the outcome less usually holds the power. By not reacting immediately, calm people signal independence from external validation. They're not ignoring what's happening. They're choosing when and how to engage. That alone changes how others approach them. In daily life, this can look like letting a rude comment pass without acknowledgement or responding later instead of instantly. Marcus Aurelius wrote about this centuries ago: control your perceptions, and you control your world. With practice, fewer reactions create more clarity, and clarity sharpens authority. And when this pattern repeats over time, something remarkable happens. People begin to treat calmness not as a trait, but as an unspoken rule they instinctively respect. Consistency is where calmness stops being a personality trait and starts becoming a reputation. When someone remains composed once, people notice. When they remain composed every time, people adapt. The human brain is a pattern recognition machine. Over time, it learns that provoking, rushing, or disrespecting this person leads nowhere productive. This is how behavior gets reprogrammed without confrontation. Friends speak more carefully. Colleagues become more professional. Even difficult personalities soften their approach, not out of fear, but out of recognition. Calmness becomes a boundary in itself. James Clear touches on this idea indirectly in Atomic Habits. Repeated behavior shapes identity, and identity shapes how others respond. In practical terms, this means showing up the same way on good days and bad ones. Same tone, same pace, same emotional posture. It doesn't mean suppressing emotion. It means mastering expression. Over time, calm becomes associated with leadership, safety, and authority, qualities people instinctively respect. And once this transformation settles in, the real question is no longer why calm people are rarely disrespected, but how anyone can deliberately cultivate that level of inner control. Here's a strange paradox most people never question. The calmest person in the room often holds the most power, yet they're the least likely to demand it. Society teaches that respect is earned through dominance, quick comebacks, and emotional intensity. But real life keeps proving the opposite. The people who stay composed under pressure are rarely interrupted, rarely challenged, and almost never treated lightly. The pain behind this topic is subtle, but real. Many intelligent, capable people feel overlooked, talked over, or disrespected not because they lack value, but because they don't play the emotional games others expect. They wonder why louder, less competent individuals seem to command more respect. The uncomfortable truth is that respect isn't granted to those who react the most, but to those who need to react the least. This video offers a counterintuitive solution. Calmness isn't passive, it's strategic. When mastered, it becomes a signal of inner authority that rewires how people perceive and treat you. And once you understand why this works, you stop chasing respect altogether because it starts following you. Calmness only becomes powerful when it's practiced deliberately. It's not about personality, temperament, or being really chill. It's about choosing responses instead of giving reactions away for free. The moment someone applies this slowing speech, pausing before replying, holding emotional posture under pressure, social dynamics begin to shift in quiet but undeniable ways. The real invitation here is reflection. How often does he react just to be understood? How many situations escalate simply because silence felt uncomfortable? What would change if calmness became the default, not the exception? These questions aren't theoretical. They point directly to daily choices that compound into authority, self-respect, and long-term influence. If this perspective challenged an old belief, that's a good sign. It means growth is happening. And if he wants to keep developing this kind of inner strength, psychological, emotional, and practical, then subscribing to the channel and activating notifications isn't just support. It's alignment with a higher standard of thinking and living.